Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony is going to start in 5 minutes. Please be seated.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. We are very delighted to welcome you to Universitas Pancasila for the 12th ATRA Tourism Forum 2023 ASEAN Connectivity Going Forward with Tourism. My name is Rahel Pramasti.
And I am Raju Maulana.
We are very honored to be the masters of ceremony for today's event.
Before we start, allow me to give our warmest welcome to
Professor Dr. Nithyanantan Ari Ragavan as President of ATRA, Executive Deans of Taylor's University.
Professor Dr. Edi Tuthendratno, SHMSI, FCB, ERB, Rector of Universitas Pancasila, whom represented by Dr. Randa Dinaryati Jokor Suprihatono, MPSI, Psycholog, as the Vice Rector of Law, Public Relations, and Ventures, Universitas Pancasila.
To Dr. Devi Rosa Kausar, the Dean of Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Pancasila.
Dr. Randa Yulia MT, Director of Interinstitutional Relations, Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy.
Dr. Porn Pisanu from Siva Palop, Dean of Faculty of Hospitality and Tourism, Prince of Songkla University, Phuket.
Dr. Agustinus, Dean of Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya.
Dr. Jenny Panchal, Senior Lecturer, James Cook University.
Mr. Ko Hok Aun.
And lastly, our dearest participants who have gathered in this room to participate in our special event, the 12th ATRA Tourism Forum 2023 ASEAN Connectivity Going Forward with Tourism. To start off our agenda, please rise for our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Participants, please be seated.
To welcome our participants, we are going to watch the performance of Indonesia's traditional dance by our students UKM Sang Sekerta.
Mesat ngepung luhur jauh di awan-awan, beber kerjang tengah, tangan tayat keringran, suku nyarang luas, rejang pematik menyeluruh, dapat mega bari hiberna tarik biru. Saha anu bisa nyusulkan tandangna, gandang jeng tertentang, payah bandingan mana. Dipika serap usah sama, ayah karang kasihan leber wawanan.
Wanita dari menopang gagah,
Berlambang sakti Indonesia jaya.
wanita dari pangkat koncaran,
Resepnya hiji rukun sakabang, hirup sauyunan para pahiri-hiri, silipikanya kehinggis bela pati, manuk dadalingan dung silo kasihnya pria, kesakunda bangsa di negara Indonesia. Mesat ngapung luhur jauh di awan-awan, beber kerjang tengah, bangun tayat keringran, suku narang luas rejang pemantik mengeluh, napak mega bari hiberna tarik biru. Saha anu bisa nyusulkan tandangna, gandang jeng pertentang, kaya bandingan mana. Dipika kinger, dipika serap usah sama, ayah karang kasihan leber wawanena.
wanita dari menopang gagah,
Berlambang sakti Indonesia jaya.
wanita dari pangkat koncaran,
Resepnya hiji rukun sakabakna, hirup sauyunan para pahiri-hiri, silipikanya kehinggis bela pati, manuk dadalingan dung silo kasihnya pria, bersatunya bangsa di negara Indonesia.
For the next agenda, we are pleased to have with us our Dean of Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Pancasila, Dr. Devi Ruza Kausar, CHE, to deliver the welcome remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Dean of Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Pancasila.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan dan salam Pancasila. Welcome, everyone, to this wonderful meeting. And I would like to greet our Honorable Rector, Professor Dr. Editut Hendratno, who cannot join us today because of other assignment in the University of Malaya. Actually, he's in Malaysia right now. But with us, we have our Vice Rector for Cooperation, Legal, Public Relations, and Ventura, Dr. Anda Dinaryanti Cokro Suprihatono, Master of Psychology, Psycholog. Ibu, thank you for coming. And our distinguished guest, President of ATRA, Professor Nityanandan Ari Ragavan, welcome to Jakarta. Secretary General of ATRA, Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Victor Wee, welcome, sir. Vice President of ATRA, Dr. Porn Pisano Promsivapalop, who is also the Dean of the Faculty of Hospitality and Tourism at Prince of Songkla University, Phuket. The Honorary Treasurer of ATRA, Dr. Puvaneswaran Kunasekaran, who is from University Putra, Malaysia. Dr. Jenny Panchal, my good friend from Australia, coming all the way from Townsville. She's with James Cook University, and with me, she is also one of the board of directors of ATRA. Ms. Amar, the Secretary Officer of ATRA, who has been helping us a lot for this event. Dr. Agustinus, my colleague from Surabaya, the Dean of School of Tourism, Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya, and Mr. Ho Hok Aun, our speaker from Malaysia, who we will have as a panel speaker this afternoon. My colleagues, I think there are some lecturers from Universitas Bunda Mulia, Mbak Supina, and do we have any other university? Podomoro, Trisakti, yes, Trisakti from Trisakti Tourism Institute, who is also in the board of directors of ATRA and also has been ATRA members for a few years. And of course, from the internal Faculty of Tourism, we have all the Vice Deans here, Vice Dean for academic and for non-academic. Also the head of study programs. We have Bachelor of Tourism and also Applied Bachelor on MICE and Events. My fellow lecturers, professors and students, a warm welcome to everyone. So we are honored and actually delighted to host the Board of Directors meeting this morning. It has been a very productive meeting and also an annual general meeting for members of ATRA. And we just realized today that it's been 10 years since the establishment of ATRA. So it's good that we have, this moment in Jakarta today. And we are going to have the 12th ATRA Tourism Forum, which topic is ASEAN Connectivity going forward with tourism. We choose this theme because actually it is in coincidence with Indonesia's leadership in ASEAN this year. And then the ASEAN theme this year is ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth, that if I'm not mistaken. And the ASEAN Tourism Forum ministerial meeting was actually held here in Indonesia, in Yogyakarta, last month in February. So when the Secretariat of ATRA sent us an email a few months ago looking for hosts to host this event, we were thinking that, this is a really timely moment because the ATF for Minister is actually held here in Indonesia. So we think that, I think it will be really timely and appropriate for us to step in and just propose ourselves to be the host. So I hope we have been quite a good host today. I hope you enjoy the meeting since morning. And then we will have these events until tonight. Warm welcome, everyone, again. And then later, we will also have a keynote speaker, Dr. Anda Yulia, Ibu Yulia from Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. So Ibu Yulia is the Director of Interagency Relations. So she will share with us about the ASEAN Tourism Forum meeting in Yogyakarta. And hopefully we can relate to that and we can make our organization relevant to the current situation and progress in ASEAN. I think with that, I would like to close my welcome remark. And of course, I would like to thank all the organizing committees, Mas Riza Firmansyah, who has been, the leader of this committee, and, everyone who has been working so hard for this, and also our students. Yeah, they've been going around to the airport booth, picking up the delegates. So we thank them for that. And well, enjoy the forum. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ibu Devi, for the welcoming speech. Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to listen to the welcoming speech delivered by the Vice Rector for Law, Public Relations and Ventures. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Anda Dinaryati Djoko Supriyatono, MPhil, Psikolog.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Clear? Wow, I see fresh faces here. I hope you enjoy staying here in Universitas Pancasila. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Shalom, Namaste, Rahayu. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua dan salam Pancasila. If you say salam Pancasila, we all repeat with Merdeka. Okay, salam Pancasila, Merdeka. Good. Yeah, we always say so many greetings, from so many cultures here, because Indonesia, as you know, are created from so many cultures. That's why we have many greetings for all the cultures we have in Indonesia. Your Excellency, distinguished guest, very welcome here. To Professor Dr. Nityanantan Arirakawan, President of ASEAN Tourism Research Association of ATRA, and also as Executive Dean of Taylor's University. Dr. Puvaneswaran Kunasekaran, Honorary Treasurer of ATRA. Dr. Devi Kausar, of course, the Dean of Faculty of Tourism and ATRA Board of Directors. And our distinguished speakers here, Dr. Anda Yulia, MT Director of Interagency Relations, Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, who hasn't come yet. Online, okay. Dr. Porn Pisano Porm Siva Palop, Dean of the Faculty of Hospitality and Tourism, Prince of Songkla University, Phuket as well. And also Dr. Agustinus, Dean of the School of Tourism, University Ciputra, Surabaya. Dr. Jenny Panchal, Senior Lecturer, James Cook University, Australia. Mr. Ko Hok Aun, Governor for the Global Sustainability Summit and Dialogues. Welcome to University Pancasila, and also, of course, our moderator, Mr. Imade Adigunadi, SEP, MCPAR, CAA, Head of the MICE and Event Study Program, Universitas Pancasila. and also colleagues from Podomoro University, Trisakti University, I see somewhere here, and from University Bunda Mulia. Welcome to Pancasila University. Also, all board members of ATRA across Asian and Australia, and our dear participant, the Vice Dean here, Head of Study Program, lecturers, and students of the Tourism Faculty, Universitas Pancasila, Jakarta, Indonesia. Good day again. First of all, I would like to convey that Professor Editut Hendratno SHMC FCARP message. The rector of the Universitas Pancasila apologized for not being able to attend this great event, even though he wishes to be here with us, because suddenly he has a duty to go abroad. He has a very delicate meeting with the University of Malaysia in Malaysia. Maybe tomorrow evening he will be back here, and he sends his apology and he sends his warm regards to you all. And he said, welcome to Universitas Pancasila and have a success for the 12th annual greeting meeting 2023 ATRA Tourism Forum. It's truly an honor for us to host this such wonderful tourism meeting and forum. As Ibu Dekan told us that she said, yes, we'll take this opportunity. I said, congratulations. You did a very good decision. As one of the leading private universities in Indonesia, Universitas Pancasila has a strong commitment to always implement research in all subjects, especially in tourism area related to the tourism faculty. In Indonesia, all universities has to implement Tridharma Perguruan Tinggi, which consists of teaching, research, and community services. Besides, for the sake of building knowledge, the research we do in Universitas Pancasila conduct will be implemented too in our community services in several regions such as Jakarta, Depok, and other areas outside Jakarta. We all witness there are temporary permanent changes brought by the pandemic, which affects travel behavior. And in the other hand, will be a big challenge for hospitality and tourism business. In this case, we need to adapt to the demands of the travelers so that the tourism industry will always be profitable, and we will welcome with everybody. For example, I asked my friend, a travel agent from abroad. I asked, who is now your clients? And they told me, I think my client will be the millennials, not more the rich people who has money, because now they are a little bit frightened to go far away, to travel far away because of the insecurity of the health problem. So I think it is a very big challenge for us to see what's going to happen with the tourism and the travelers. In this case, we need always to adapt the demands of the travelers so that the tourism industry will always be profitable. For example, we always have to adapt with new technology, understand the demands of people who maybe chooses more nature than luxury, also hygienity, simplicity, promote health, accessibility as the effect of the pandemic. This condition influences travelers and people who chooses to travel most. We must learn who will be our customer. Are our customers still the senior citizens who love to stay in big hotels, or millennials who travel a lot while working? They need maybe cozy but less expensive place to stay, full of nature and culture, always clean, hygienic, equipped with high technology, such as strong Wi-Fi, because they want to work while having fun. Due to the pandemic, I think we also understand that more people went back to the countryside. They don't have to work in the cities. And it's being a habit to feel the beautiful of the nature. And they work more easily they can connect more easily with people with the development of the technology. So I think it is something that we can all see as an opportunity, a new opportunity for the new travelers and the new tourism area. And we see that places they stay, like houses in comfortable villages, are their choice now. Because I asked my fellow friends from abroad, oh, what are you looking for if you go to Indonesia? I think we don't look for big hotels anymore. We look for houses, living with people, living harmonious with the surroundings, the environment, and we can also feel the culture, the ambience. I thought, okay, it's very nice to hear, because young people now tend to travel, tend to go abroad, tend to have many experience, but they don't have enough money to live in hotels. So I think it's a great opportunity, and also it's a very good research study for those who like to travel after this pandemic event. Indonesia itself has many potential to be one of the best places to visit due to the characteristics of our society. We have everything. We have, I think all the Asian countries are more or less the same. We have everything. We have nature. We have lots of culture. We have solidarity. We have also ability to show our kindness to people. And in line with our old ideology, Indonesian people are the open society, great tolerance, and kind hospitality. I think it's shown by Ibu Dekan, Ibu Devi. This is in line with our ideology, our working ideology called Pancasila, the 5 philosophy of life. And it is named by our campus. Our campus is named by Pancasila because we want to show the living ideology here in our campus. And maybe if you have the opportunity, you can see that another part of our campus, you can see 6 house of worship. Yeah, we have, and they are all together in one area, shows that we tolerate everything that's being here. And it's not only a statue of houses, but it is working. So on Sundays, there are also Catholics or Protestant prayers there. We have also Hindu, El Buddha, Konghucu, and many things, and the Muslim mosque as well. So I think you can visit it, and it's very interesting. The Faculty of Tourism, I see now, is doing many research in tourism area, which could meet the demands of the traveler, such as rural area region with wonderful nature, good and healthy food, also beautiful culture, who has great potential to be one of the touristic area. In the implementation of community services, they supervise and work together with people to develop their area, which are beautiful villages, to be one of the cozy tourism village destination. Of course, it was also after they do some research about that. And I see what they are doing, and I was so happy that they did a very good job here in Indonesia. By hosting this international research forum, it gives us more encouragement to achieve that aim. We acknowledge that ASEAN Tourism Research Association, or ATRA, has the reputation of being one of the key players in Asian tourism and hospitality management. We also understand that many beautiful destinations, such as nature, culture, would be found in Southeast Asia region, and we are very fortunate to possess this kind of richness in the nature, art, and culture. As the Vice Rector of Universitas Pancasila, I would like to extend my appreciation to ASEAN Tourism Research Association for the collaboration, and also to the Faculty of Tourism Universitas Pancasila, who did their best to host and organize this forum. And Mr. Riza, you were the head of the organization, Okay, congratulations. I see everybody is organized very well. We are hoping that this forum can enrich and strengthen our collaboration, and that new research collaborations can be achieved in the near future. On behalf of the executive management of Universitas Pancasila, I would like to congratulate you all on this event. The 12th ATRA Tourism Forum, ASEAN Connectivity, going forward with tourism. Thank you very much and have a fruitful forum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ibu Dinaryati, for the welcoming speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to listen to the opening speech delivered by the President of ATRA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Nityanantan Ari Ragavan.
Good afternoon. Selamat sore. And good afternoon. I can't greet you in other languages other than these two. So, first and foremost, I would like to invite all of you to the 12th ASEAN Tourism Forum 2022 at Jakarta, Indonesia. My appreciation goes to Madam Dra Dinaryati Chokro Suprihatono. I was told that you are more known as Dini Chokro. Thank you so much, Vice Rector of Universitas Pancasila, for hosting us today. Yeah, really appreciate it and appreciate your presence as well. My appreciation, of course, goes to Associate Professor Dr. Devi Rosa Kausa, Dean at the Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Pancasila, and her team of people, lecturers and students for hosting this event today. Please give them a big round of applause. In a lot of work. And I also want to congratulate Universitas Pancasila for recently obtaining the national accreditation at an excellence level. I was told it was given a status Unggul. Yeah, so congratulations on your national accreditation as well. To the ATRA board members and ATRA members from Indonesian universities who are here today, thank you for coming for this event and showing your relentless support to the organization. The theme of the forum this year is ASEAN Connectivity, going forward with tourism. My special thanks to our keynote speaker, Dra Yulia, Director of Inter-Institutional Relations, Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. Panel speakers, Dr. Pon Pisanu from Prince of Songkla University, Thailand, Dr. Jenny Panchal from James Cook University, Australia, Mr. Agus Tinus from Universitas Ciputra, and Mr. Koo Hock On from Malaysia. And our distinguished moderator, Aimit Adi Gunaidi. I hope I read your name correctly. Head of Event Management and Pancasila. Nade. Head of Event Management, University of Pancasila. ATRA board members, thank you for taking your time out, coming all the way to Indonesia from wherever you were. Ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a quick introduction, in 2010, 2011, I initiated this idea of a couple of tourism universities should get together and form a network. So I started lobbying some universities. The first few that came out was, of course, PSU, Prince of Songkla, and a couple of universities in Cambodia and Thailand. And Philippines, University Philippines. Then slowly I I got university from Indonesia actually said, okay, we would like to join this network. It was a network only, just a group of universities coming together with common interests in tourism, research, and education. So that was the initial starter in 2010 and 11. That was something I wanted to do because I've been in the industry in higher education, in tourism for many years. And I thought, let's do something at the regional level. And that also is also one of my agenda because I want to do a lot of branding for Taylor's University. So today we are ranked number 20 in the world, top 20 in the world. Actually, our ranking is number 16. And I guess I needed to do this also to benefit Taylor's as well. And the last country that actually said they will join was Singapore. It was very difficult to get Singapore to come in. At that time, the Singapore Tourism Board was Lawrence. And he somehow or other met me in one meeting, and I sold this idea to him, and he was very convinced. And he sold this idea to some Singapore higher education institutions, finally. And then James Cook University, Singapore, actually joined us at that time. So I got the last one to come in as well to complete the list of 10 universities in ASEAN to be part of this network. Then what happened? I became a bit more ambitious. Sorry, I take a bit of time telling you what ATRA is all about. I became a bit more ambitious in 2012. I said, why don't this network go to ASEAN Secretariat, which is in Jakarta, and ask ASEAN Secretariat, can we become a civil society organization under ASEAN? It took me 2 years to lobby, 2012, 2013. I met the first ASEAN Secretariat Secretary General, Tan Sri Ajit Singh. I think Dato' Sri, you know Ajit. I met him. I told him, please come since you're the first ASEAN Secretariat Secretary General. Let's go to. I appointed him as an advisor. And because of his network, he knows ASEAN very well. We came to Indonesia and came to ASEAN Secretariat and sold this idea. And finally, after a couple of meetings, the ASEAN NTO meeting, the National Tourism Organization meeting, which the ministers of tourism actually sit in that meeting. In one of those meetings, I went with Tan Sri Ajit, Dato' Sarjit Singh, and I don't know, Dato' Sri, you were with me at that time. Four of us went together with my Deputy Vice Chancellor. Four of us went and presented to ASEAN NTOs to say that I think a network of universities put together should actually join this meeting as well, because we can contribute in terms of knowledge transfer, consulting, in terms of new knowledge to the field and all that. And finally, it was approved. It took a lot of effort. Finally, it was approved in 2013. And today is 2023. It is quite symbolic that I'm standing in Indonesia, in Jakarta, and actually celebrating the 10th year when I started lobbying it in 2012 back in Jakarta as well. At that time in ASEAN Secretariat. So thank you so much for hosting us at a very right time. So today we are made up of these 10 universities. Of course, our membership is about 35 institutions and individual members. And today we have, I think in the meeting today, we saw the power of getting together. In this new world today, especially for the young ones, you cannot run away from networking. Networking is what makes you somebody one day because of the contacts and because of the network that you have. And I always tell my son, I say, whatever you do, don't forget one thing, make sure you network like nobody's business, because that's where you get your opportunity. So the power of network between these universities, I think today is slowly bearing fruit, because we talked about joint publication, which is very important in QS ranking, if you know, the International Research Network indicator. We spoke about, let's join into the academic reputation together. We did some workshops together with University of Pancasila, also with, I think, Prince of Songkla, together with Taylor's. And now we are talking about, let's apply for some international grants together. If we could actually do it in some niche areas in ASEAN. So it looks like universities who has common interest and common objective can actually be together. belong to an association that probably will benefit the university back in the long run as well. So that's my short story about ASEAN and its activity. And since we are a tourism association, I will cover a little bit about ASEAN in terms of what is happening with the ASEAN connectivity and all that. You know, the pandemic to me has been a great reset. I don't know you understand the word, the great reset. The pandemic has actually just buried all those past achievement about tourism. You remember, I don't know whether you remember or not, but those of you who have been in tourism, you know that in 2018, I think somewhere in 2018, UNWTO announced that there were 1 billion people traveling all around the world. It was a celebration. It was a celebration that tourism actually is so powerful that people are traveling and crossing borders. 1 billion people travel, and it is giving back economic contribution to the countries, jobs, new opportunity for businesses, and all that. And of course, tourism has got another soft part of it, which it allows for peace, it allows for cross-cultural understanding, it allows for people to actually get together in a diversely different culture. So tourism has got the economic side, it also got the softer socio-cultural part as well. And we were all celebrating that, you know, I remember at that time, WTTC actually announced that there will be 80 million jobs available by 2025, 2018, 2019. Suddenly there came this animal called COVID, which is a virus, and wiped out everything that you had. And in 2.5 years, suddenly it disappeared. I don't know, you realize or not, it almost disappeared. Right? Today, people don't wear masks anymore. We were all moving around. I just came back from a couple of places. And I realized the airport was so full of people everywhere. And I don't know what happened. Where was the virus? Suddenly it disappeared. It came, it did something it disrupted everything that we were achieving. And then suddenly it went back and it destroyed completely the travel and tourism industry. The first industry to be hit, the last industry to recover. That was what COVID-19 did to the travel and tourism industry. And now we are recovering. I was in Maldives a couple of days ago, starting some work there. And they told me that their pre-pandemic tourism arrival was 1.2 million. And now their arrival is 1.5 million. They're doing better than pre-COVID. They bounced back. But of course, a couple of countries are still reeling and trying to actually come back from this havoc that COVID-19 has done. I think more or less IATA has said that the travel volume now has gone back to about 80% or 75 to 80%. I think slowly coming back in in most places, in most countries. And China has opened up, so people say, okay, travel will bounce back. I think Thailand is waiting for Chinese tourists to come out. When I was in Maldives, I saw a lot of Russian tourists who actually were there. They charter plane and they went. And all over the airports in Europe are full of people. You know, you cannot imagine. So tourism did very well. Tourism was wiped out, and now tourism is coming back. So the one word that you can use for tourism is actually resilient. This is probably the most resilient industry in the world. This is the industry that every other 2 to 3 years is hit by some kind of tragedy or some kind of event. You had tsunami that hit, that literally, I think, affected, destroyed Phuket, and it bounced back. Yeah. Then you had this SARS. I don't know whether you remember or not. SARS. And then you have economic crisis that happened in two or three times back in 1998, I think 2000 something, and all that kind of also put tourism down. But tourism is very resilient. A lot of people after COVID, I think, told themselves that we don't want to be in this industry anymore. But suddenly the money is so lucrative back. You find that the opportunity for business, the opportunity for higher wages is coming back in tourism and become even more attractive to be in tourism than to be in other businesses. So people are slowly coming back again. But I'm very sure there will be new trends that's happening after the pandemic. Yeah. So we spoke about rethinking the future of tourism. So there are a couple of things that people speak about the way tourism going to be. Of course, the word sustainability came back. The word sustainability has been there for as long as I know. Okay, that we must be sustainable, the environment must be sustainable, what we do must have a balance and all that. But it was never taken seriously until COVID hit us. And suddenly sustainability became so important that in every policy paper today, the word sustainability seems to appear again and it's taken seriously. Because of, do you know why? The young ones, do you know why? Do you know the theory of how COVID happened? Right? It was human destroying the forest and trying exotic animals as their dish, and eventually the virus in the animal actually was transmitted into human, and that spread. That's one theory. Another theory, of course, the American theory of the lab in China that broke out and all that. So I don't know. I think it's most likely that we in Malay we say rakus. You know, we are very greedy, and we started to destroy the forest, started eating food that we shouldn't be eating, like bats and I don't know what. And suddenly that virus came into us and spread among all human beings. And people realized that, oops, I think we better stop doing this and start protecting the environment again. So green tourism came into picture, right? People are talking today about, because of COVID, people are talking about digital transformation. The word metaverse, I think, is in your book, right? How augmented reality is coming in as a precursor to anybody who want to have a tourism activity in the future. So you can actually go into one world which is not a real world. You can purchase tourism activities and then you can go into the real world and try it again. I think in Europe and in US it's happening. A lot of young people are going into this world, then the real world. And I guess it will not change because, as you know, the explosion of tourism happened also because of digitalization. Tourism was so easy, travel was so easy, it was just at your fingertips. It was at your handphone. You just go into an app, you book booking.com or whichever.com that you like, and you book your stay and you go. And you book from your handphone as well, your travel or your flight, and you go. So travel became so easy, so much powered by technology that it actually blasted the way travel happened. That's how you cross 1 billion, right? So today you talk about sustainability, green tourism, you talk about digitalization, and you talk about a couple of other things as well. But the question is, what else in rethinking the future of tourism, what else will come? Okay, so that's one very important one. The second one is, are we ready when the second disaster happens, the next disaster happens, another COVID come back? I don't know what name of that COVID will be, but assuming 3 years later, another COVID come back, are we ready to face this disaster again or not? Do we have sufficient crisis management plan to actually get ourselves averse to this bencana, to this crisis that's going to come? We are not. We are not ready. You know, when COVID came and hit you, I tell you, even all the countries didn't know how to react. The first time it's hitting all over the world. And if it hits you again 3 years down the line, you are not ready as well. So the question is, what do we do to fight that? Or what do we do to prepare ourselves in case another one comes? What are the preventive measures and all that? So I guess these are interesting topics that's coming up. For those of you who are interested, do you do your PhD, you can consider all these topics because these are very new topics that can be very interesting for you as well and for your supervisors. With that, I would like to thank Universitas Pancasila for kindly hosting us for the forum, a very significant one on the 10th year of ATRA. And we also would like to thank all of you who have been here and the organizing team as well, Dr. Reza and his student. Thank you so much for organizing and hosting us with your students and all that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Nityanantan Ariragavan, for the opening speech. To begin our event, we are going to hear the keynote speech, which will be delivered by Dr. Randa Yulia MT as the Director of Interinstitutional Relations from Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, who is here with us via Zoom meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Randa Yulia MT.
Hilang mas. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Nama Budaya, Salam, Salam Kebajikan. The Honorable Ibu Dr. Randa Dinaryati Cokro Suprihatono, MC Psikolog, Vice Rector for Cooperation, Legal Public Relation and Ventura, Professor Dr. Nityanantan Ariragavan, President of ATRA, and the Executive Dean of Taylor's University, Dr. Devi Rosa Kausar, Dean of Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Pancasila, Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Victor Wee, Secretary General of ATRA, distinguished panel speakers, ATRA Board of Directors, and all participants. I'm sorry that I'm not attending the meeting in person because I have a meeting as well in Bandung to prepare the ASEAN Tourism Committee meeting on May. To begin, let me introduce myself. I'm Yulia. I'm representing Ibu Diah. She is Deputy of Resources and Institution, and I'm pleased to be participating in the 12th ATRA Tourism Forum today, albeit remotely via Zoom. Additionally, I would like to extend my congratulations to the organizers of this event for its successful arrangement. I'm also delighted that Indonesia was selected as the location for this forum, which means it could boost the recovery of our MICE industry. Next. I would like to take this opportunity to provide quick about the ASEAN Tourism Cooperation. The update will cover 3 main areas, which are the challenges and opportunities in ASEAN connectivity, the ASEAN Tourism Forum 2023, and the priority for ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan in 2023, which is referred to as the way forward. Next is okay, moment. Yeah. I will use my headset because somebody told me that my voice is not clear. Uh, is it clear, my voice? Okay, we continue. To align with the focus of this occasion, again, I would like to highlight the potential benefits that could be gained from ASEAN connectivity in the tourism industry. These benefits include various opportunities for economic growth and job creation within the region. Furthermore, the increased connectivity would encourage people to explore and discover the different parts of the ASEAN region. In addition to this, there would be an improvement in the infrastructure for travelers to navigate the region easily, and digital connectivity would be strengthened to facilitate access to information. Cultural exchange would also be promoted, allowing for greater appreciation and understanding of the diverse cultures within the ASEAN region. Finally, there would be an increased focus on sustainable tourism practices, and ensuring that tourism in the region is conducted in a way that protects the environment and benefits local communities. Next, despite the potential benefits of ASEAN connectivity, there are still some issues that need to be addressed in the tourism industry within the region. These issues include infrastructure, regulation, and high costs. The infrastructure in the ASEAN region, particularly the transportation network, accommodation, and tourism facilities need improvement to provide better services and facilities for tourists. In regulations are also a challenge with visa requirements, tourism labor mobility, and a lack of harmonization among the member states, hindering the development of a more connected tourism industries. Finally, high costs remain a barrier for many tourists, with expensive airfare and the price of accommodation being prohibitive for some. Next, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, last month Indonesia had the honor of hosting the ASEAN Tourism Forum 2023 in Yogyakarta, which marked the end of our chairmanship in the ASEAN Tourism 2022 until 2023. The theme of ATF 2023 was ASEAN, a journey to wonderful destination, reflects our commitment to boosting tourism recovery and creating competent and competitive professionals. Along with ASEAN tourism tradition, the ATF had two main events, namely the G2G meetings held in Merit, Yogyakarta on 2nd until 5th February 2023. We also had the B2B travel exchange held in Jogja Expo Center on 3rd until 5th February 2023. As you can see on the image here, the commencement of this occasion was conducted by the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia and accompanied by the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of Indonesia, the Vice Governor of Yogyakarta, as well as the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN. Next. During the G2G meeting, various topics were discussed, including the progress of the ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan and other relevant work plans with dialogue partners. This discussion took place as part of the 57th ASEAN NTOs and related meetings. All these strategic programs that had been developed in previous year were finally endorsed during the 26th meeting of ASEAN Tourism Minister and related meetings on the following days. In addition to the main event, there were also several side events held in conjunction with the ITF, including press conference where tourism ministers delivered statements on the various agenda items discussed. Furthermore, we also had the ASEAN Tourism Awards, which recognized the excellence in tourism industry, particularly for public toilets, homestay, spa services, and community-based tourism. The ITF was concluded with a handover ceremony from Indonesia to Lau PDR, which will be the next chair of ASEAN Tourism from 2023 until 2024. Next. In conjunction with ATF 2023, the Travel Exchange was able to successfully attract 348 international sellers and 115 buyers, which could lead to significant transactions for the travel industry. Additionally, 50 national and international media outlets covered the whole agenda of ATF 2023. At the ASEAN Tourism Standard Award ceremony in Jakarta and on February 5th, 2023, 43 homestays in the region received the 4th ASEAN Homestay Award. 29 entities received the 3rd ASEAN Community-Based Tourism Award. 38 establishments received the 2nd ASEAN Spa Services Award, and 48 establishments received the 2nd ASEAN Public Toilet Award. Next, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, the question is how we will proceed to put ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan into effect in the 2023. Next. At the 26th ATM, the tourism ministers declared 4 primary goals, including making ASEAN more innovative and competitive, making ASEAN more innovative and competitive, improving the capacity building of ASEAN tourism professionals, promoting responsible, sustainable, and inclusive tourism development, and encouraging greater adoption and transformation of digital tourism. Next. Regarding innovation and competitiveness, the ministers has approved several programs that will be implemented in the region. This program includes the Intra-ASEAN Recovery Campaign, in which will be supported by the Canadian Trade and Investment Facility for Development, or CTIF, resuming the cruise tourism, developing the ASEAN Safe Travel Stamp certification, implementing the ASEAN Guideline on Hygiene and Safety for tourism professionals and communities in the tourism industry, and promoting lesser-known destinations. When it comes to competitiveness, Indonesia will take lead to initiate the ASEAN-India Cruise Tourism Route. Additionally, Indonesia will host the ASEAN Tourism Investment Forum this year, which will be served as a platform for exchanging investment facility best practices among the countries in the region. Next, to improve the abilities of tourism professionals in the region, this year's program will concentrate on 4 areas. This includes approving the amendment of the ASEAN MRATP, dissemination of the updated package of ACCSTP, dissemination of the ASEAN MICE and event professionals toolboxes, and development of action plan based on the comprehensive study on the implementation of MRATP done by area. Next, to encourage the responsible, sustainable, and inclusive development of tourism, the programs will prioritize the following initiatives: implementing an action plan based on the framework on sustainable tourism development in ASEAN post-COVID-19 done by area, creating a network for the ASEAN roadmap for strategic development of ecotourism clusters and tourism corridors, assisting in the development of an ASEAN strategy for carbon neutrality through collaboration with the ASEAN economic ministers, ASEAN agriculture and forestry ministers, ASEAN energy ministers, and ASEAN transport ministers. Next. Lastly, to promote wider adoption and advancement of digital tourism, the program will prioritize to speeding up the region-wide digital tourism skill training and also to identify the potential implementation of technology-based solutions to facilitate seamless travel. Next, in conclusion, I hope that this presentation has shed light on the various programs and initiatives that have been implemented to enhance the capabilities of tourism professionals, support sustainable tourism development, and promote digital tourism adoption. We believe that this effort will contribute to the growth and success of the tourism industry in the region. We encourage all stakeholders, especially the millennial generation, to take advantage of these programs and collaborate to further advance the industry. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to working together towards a brighter future for tourism in our region. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Ibu Yulia. Before we continue to our panel session, we would like to invite Ibu Dini and the board of ATRA and all panelists to come forward to take pictures with Ibu Yulia. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Now we continue to our session. Without any further ado, we are going to start our panel session, which will be moderated by our very own head of MICE and event study program, Universitas Pancasila. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Imade Adi Gunadi, SIP MS Sipar, CEE.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this forum. Here comes the main session. This forum, the ATRA Tourism Forum, is a platform to knowledge sharing between the stakeholder, between academic and government and NGO especially. And sorry. Between among academics, government official, industry member, and postgraduate student from ASEAN region, and to aim to discuss the role of tourism in enhancing connectivity between people, institution, especially between universities and higher education in tourism, and non-government organization, and between nation to nation. I would like to invite the honorary distinguished panelists. Please, Professor Dr. Sanu. Please welcome. Dr. Sanu from Siva is Dean of the Faculty of Hospitality and Tourism, Prince of Stockholm University. He has very active in the publication, very good publication, and the latest one is this year is applying integrated generation structure component analysis to explore tourism benefit consideration and cost confidence toward travel aspect. Dr. Nu is also has a solid background in organization, many organizations from ATRA and other, and also the editor of several journals. Yes, yeah. Good afternoon, sir. And the second panelist is Dr. Jenny Pancal. Okay. Dr. Jenny Pancal has also a strong academic. He has experience academic from New Zealand, Australia, Philippines, and also in Singapore. So she is experience teaching is very solid. Yeah. Now she is a senior lecturer in James Cook University, Singapore, and Australia. Yes. Thank you. And the third panelist is Dr. Agustinus from Universitas Putra. Selamat sore, Pak Agustinus. Mr. Agustinus also has a strong solid experience in the industry, hospitality industry before and along with his experience in teaching. Dr. Agustinus is now the dean of the faculty of School of Tourism in Universitas Pancasila, Surabaya. Ya, Surabaya. Surabaya is about 1 hour flight from Jakarta. Ya. And the last one, and the fourth panelist is Mr. Ko Auk Aun. Mr. Ko has a background education in University Pertanian Malaysia and University of Sussex, and is also author of a monogram attracting Japanese tourists, and he is also now is governor for the Global Sustainability Summit and Dialogues, and is active advisor to the Malaysian First Foundation. I think it's a great foundation in the Malaysia. Yeah. So without any further, I think we can start the session with Dr. Nu presentation first. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, President of ATRA, Professor Nitya, and also Dean Devi, Dean of Faculty of Tourism at Pancasila University, and colleagues and students. Very nice to meet you today, and thank you very much for inviting me to be a panelist. And thank you for the host, hosting this wonderful event. I'd like to spend 10 minutes talking to you about the role of tourism after the pandemic. We have been talking a lot about the benefit of tourism in terms of economic benefits and how tourism generates economic benefit to host communities, the destination. Yeah. And during the COVID-19, the 3 years period, Phuket, for example, that relies on tourism, at least 80% of our economy relies on tourism. We found it very hard to survive during this 3 years period. And now I'm very happy that Phuket is starting to recover. Now we are seeing a lot of tourists coming back to Phuket again. Yeah. But I'm thinking maybe we should look at different forms of tourism rather than looking at similar kind of tourism in the past where we focus a lot on mass tourism. Tourists come to Phuket to enjoy sea and sun. Yeah. And now Phuket government and also industry practitioners get together, including the academics. We get together and we are thinking about different forms of tourism after this COVID-19 period. And we came up with many different ideas that we would like to promote in order to attract more different type of tourists coming back to Phuket. One of them is about maybe wellness tourism or other type of tourists that have emerged after the COVID-19. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the role of tourism in connecting people together, not only in form of the economic connectivity, but I'd like to talk to you about how tourism can bring together people and will connect tourists to the locals, will share culture. Yeah. Tourism can be a form of activity that will benefit not only economics benefit, but will be a form of activity that bring knowledge and experience, and also sharing opportunity to share culture between people. Yeah. So next, please. I like to focus on the cultural aspect of tourism by focusing on gastronomy tourism. Nowadays, gastronomy tourism has become an emerging tourism activity in Thailand and also in many destinations worldwide. Phuket has been named UNESCO City of Gastronomy in the past, I think it was 6-7 years ago. UNESCO named Phuket as Phuket City of Gastronomy, Creative City of Gastronomy. There have been many reasons behind this. One of the reasons is because Phuket has quite unique cuisine and food, local food that has been passed from generation to generation. And also Phuket has quite diverse cuisines, not only local cuisine, but we have lots and lots of cuisine because of tourism. Tourists come together, visit Phuket, and they brought with them also their own cuisine. We have a lot of expats staying in Phuket, and now we have so many different type of restaurants and different cuisines on offer. When you look at gastronomy tourism, this is a form of tourism that can help us to connect destination to destination. For example, when we look at Phuket local cuisine, it turned out that our local cuisine is very similar to local cuisine in Penang. And then when we look at it, how both of them are very similar, it turned out that we can trace the history back, and then we are able to connect Phuket and Penang in many aspects. Like, for example, we share history. We have a lot of migrants from Chinese people from Penang migrating to Phuket during the tin mining era, before the tourism industry emerged in Phuket. So Phuket share very similar culture and history and also cuisine. Yeah. Another thing is gastronomy tourism. When we try to promote gastronomy tourism, this way help us to stimulate local culture. Local people feel that they are beginning to become more involved in tourism. Yeah. Not like mass tourism in the past where tourists come here just to enjoy sea and sand. But now they are able to get connected closer to the locals, enjoying more of the local food, and local people become more proud of their own culture, their own food, their own cuisine, and have developed more involvement of local. This is another form of community-based tourism, local tourism. And another thing is we can connect tourists to the destination in a more profound kind of connections, because tourists will be able to immerse themselves and learn local culture and way of life more through cuisine, local cuisine. Yeah. Next, please. If you look at Phuket, many people think about Phuket as sea and sand destination. What about Phuket town that has no sea? We have no connection in the Phuket town. It's quite far away from beaches. Phuket town thought that the only way that they can attract tourists to come and have tourism activities in Phuket town is by promoting their culture and their cuisine. Yeah. So we have the buildings that are very similar to buildings in Penang. Is Chino-Portuguese kind of building, the costume, and of course the cuisine. Yeah. Since 2015, Phuket town has led Phuket to come up with many creative activities to promote local cuisine to tourists. And a very popular area is called Sunday Night Market in Phuket town. Now it's packed, it's full, and Phuket town is planning to extend the night market to cover more streets, because the demand is so high right now. And street food is a big highlight there. And that way, local people are able to connect more with the tourists, and tourists from all over the world are able to connect with local people in Phuket more. And local culture, local history, gastronomy tour, cooking activities are also on offer as well in Phuket town. Next, please. You can see the buildings and the food, local food between Penang and Phuket are very, very similar. We have this kind of Portuguese kind of buildings, and it's exactly the same in Penang and in Phuket. I have never been to Penang. I hope that I will go and try local food there as well. Okay, next, please. Okay, this is the city of gastronomy because of the local cuisine and diverse kind of cuisine on offer. Next, please. Okay, next, please. This is one of the activities that I have found. I participated in this activity last week, and I thought it very interesting. Phuket Old Town actually has got together in their community and established quite strong community-based tourism, but right in the center of Phuket city. Yeah, and they offer many activities, and one of those activities is this. They are proud of their local food, so they have got Phuket Town food and cultural tour on offer. Everything is organized by local people, and you can see that the tourists can go there and experience local cuisine and then get to eat what they cook, and everything is they are able to get into local houses and learn how to do cooking with local Phuket people. Yeah, next, please. So this is kind of connectivity between tourists and local people. And this is Phuket night market that I explained to you earlier. Now it's become very, very popular. This is the picture, the current picture after COVID-19. Yeah. Nowadays, nobody is worried about COVID-19 anymore. And people get no social distancing anymore. Next, please. Not only Phuket, but Thailand is also seeing this gastronomy tourism as another very important tourism market. So, Tourism Authority of Thailand came up with this idea, and this is a way to promote more of gastronomy tourism in Thailand. And Thailand identify restaurants that are called kind of BCG style. BCG in Thailand is called bio circular green economy. Yeah, and we think that this is very, very important concept that we want to drive our economy, and that is also applied to tourism and also to gastronomy tourism as well. So the government identified or came up with criteria to select restaurants that are classified as BCG style restaurants that care for the environment. Yeah. Along with fascinating travel routes, so combine restaurants with tourism. And they identify 6 provinces, including Bangkok, Chonburi, Chiang Rai, Chiang Mai, Krabi, and Phuket as the routes for gastronomy tourism. And each province also has its own routes within the province. Next, please. So actually 5 routes, including Bangkok and Chonburi is one route, and then Phuket has its own route. Okay, give you some example of the programs that the government is trying to promote. Next, please. Okay, next. In Phuket, Tourism Authority of Thailand came up with this idea by trying to connect attractions in Phuket with food. So there's a gastronomy tour within Phuket by coming up with this example of 4 days, 3 night program that motivate tourists to travel around Phuket to sample different cuisine, different local dishes, focusing on those BCG restaurants. So I think this kind of tourism would be able to help us to connect more between tourists and local people and local economy, local community. And this way can help us to realize, to maximize the benefit of tourism, not just for economic development, but also for social and cultural exchange between people. And this way can help to stimulate more culture of local people as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nu. It's really interesting about the gastronomic tourism. Yeah, in Indonesia, I think we also a great fan of some of Thailand dishes. Thai tea is very popular here, and the tom yum and the mango sticky rice, I think, also quite popular here. So it's no wonder if then the gastronomy can. Okay, I think for the audience in the Zoom, if you like to ask any question, please mention in the chat room, and then we will keep it in the end of the session. And for the participant here, please if you have any question, please keep it later at the end of the session. Now I would like to the next panelist, Mr. Dr. Jenny Panchan, please. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Salamat sore. All right, so we're here to talk about ASEAN connectivity and why is connectivity important? How relevant is this connectivity in the ASEAN region? Well, we have been thriving here in ASEAN, and our tourism obviously has been hit, as our ATRA president mentioned in his welcome remarks. But we are a very resilient region, and we've shown that throughout the COVID period. Our recovery means that we are recovering as a stronger, with a stronger tourism industry. Tourism is a very pivotal element in our development and how we reimagine tourism in our region. But connectivity within intra-ASEAN, as we know it, is important. That's why we're talking about that today, right here. However, have we actually thought about inter-ASEAN connectivity? And that is our partnership as ASEAN with other countries in the world. So my contribution to this panel discussion this afternoon really focuses on that inter-ASEAN partnership, and we'll be focusing on Australia. Next slide, please. So I've listed here a couple of dialogue and development partners of ASEAN, and this afternoon I'll be focusing on Australia. As you can see, we have partnerships with countries pretty much across most continents. And we also have sectoral dialogue partners in Europe and South America, in South Asia, and development partners, mainly European, as well as established regional cooperation mechanisms. And the most prominent of these are the ASEAN +3 and the East Asia Summit. I am originally from the Philippines. And when I arrived here, people have been talking to me in Bahasa Indonesian. I have to tell them, I'm sorry, no Bahasa. So that makes me an ASEAN citizen. And it is a very good opportunity for me to be here as an ASEAN citizen and representing an originally Australian institution and talk about this partnership between ASEAN and Australia. We have been benefiting a lot from Australia through the different initiatives that the government has had over the past few decades already. You may have heard of ASEAN Australia Awards, which is a scholarship for people in the Indo-Pacific region. And I'm one of the products of that program, having completed the Australian Leadership Awards for my PhD. In talking about all these partnerships, it's important to consider what is it as well that Australia gains from us. And I think that's something that some of us, if not most of us, really neglect. We're just talking about how these partnerships, how we can gain from this partnership, but have we also considered how Australia in its as a country benefits from that partnership, and how we can also gain from whatever benefits they are getting. Next slide, please. So the Australia ASEAN Council is the one that really drives all these initiatives, providing benefits to ASEAN countries and broadly in the Indo-Pacific region. And it also helps communities in our region, that is ASEAN, in many different ways. So by and large, the Australia ASEAN Council strengthens Australia's engagement with the region through advocacy and support for businesses, education, and cultural initiatives. And I hope you don't mind if I read from my notes, because I'm going to talk about some statistics here, and that Australia has strong connections to the people of Southeast Asia, including migration. I'm not sure how many of you here have relatives or friends in Australia that you visit for holidays, and I'm going to show some stats there and how holidays and visiting friends and relatives are the main purposes of traveling to that region, through education exchanges and obviously tourism. There's over 1 million Australian residents that have claimed as ASEAN country as their country of birth since in the 2021 census, and over 1.1 million with ASEAN ancestry. There's over 800,000 Australians that speak an ASEAN language, and that is very significant for a country, a big country like Australia, but with very, in terms of population, is not that big compared to our countries here in ASEAN. Many ASEAN alumni, like myself, have careers in politics, business, and academia, and the arts, while maintaining close ties to Australia. Young Australians also choose to study in Southeast Asia, including under the new Colombo Plan, and I'm going to show some photos of that later on. When I started as an ASEAN leader, Australia Leadership Awardee in 2008, I was in the same batch as Najwa Shihab. We received the Australian Leadership Awards at the same time, and we were in the same leadership program in 2008. So it was quite an honor to be sitting with her next to her in the bus and talking about her studies, because she was doing her master's at that time. Just a side story, and I sat next to her and she introduced herself as Nana. I thought, well, she's a very pretty girl, and I asked where she was from, and she didn't tell me she was a celebrity here in Indonesia at that time. She's a journalist, but later on I found out at the gala night that she was actually a big person here in Indonesia. So it's good to be friends with her. So just to give you some snapshots of the different programs that the Australia ASEAN Council have been funding over the years. And these are just two of them. There's actually over 100 programs since, I don't know, in the last 5 years at least. And the Australian government, through the Australia ASEAN Council, has given out millions of dollars towards different projects in our region. One of them is the Australia ASEAN Council Tourism and Hospitality Forum for Smart Recovery Development in 2021. So this was during the COVID period. And very recently, just last year, we actually completed the Cultural Tourism Recovery Sharing Best Practices. And this was a partnership between James Cook University, Hildik Dipari here in Indonesia, which is an association of universities here. There's UMS in Sabah, Malaysia, and St. Louis University and the University of the Cordilleras in the Philippines. It was a good partnership, and it was really good to see how different organizations and even individuals have benefited from this kind of partnership. We've also included some indigenous organizations and individuals in Australia, which, because the project is about knowledge sharing, we're hoping that different organizations across ASEAN and Australia and beyond will be able to maintain that network that they've started because of the cultural tourism recovery project. Next, please. So I mentioned about the New Colombo Plan. I'm not sure if you've heard, but the New Colombo Plan is one of the flagship initiatives of the Australian government, where it supports undergraduate Australian students and sends them in the Indo-Pacific region for work, for mobility, for basically for studies, internship, and so on. So it's a very limited time, but again, this is also funded by the Australian government. The photos that you see here on the screen were here in Jakarta. They're our students from James Cook University who traveled to Jakarta under the New Colombo Plan Mobility Program. And they were accompanied by Dr. Dennis Tolkash, who's my colleague based in Cairns. They're here to learn about Indonesian culture and so on. They were hosted by Trisakti University. And this trip to Indonesia is actually credited towards their degree. So it's part of their study. So it's a very beneficial thing to do. So what do these kind of programs mean for ASEAN? It means that there's a greater cross-cultural connectivity between the Indonesian students in this case and the Australian students. And we're hoping to continue with this program. In fact, what you have there, sustainability and innovation in Vietnam, which is also a New Colombo Plan mobility program by James Cook University. And this is, we're calling students in our university to join this program as well, to have a similar experience, not just in Indonesia, but in Vietnam next time. So we're hoping to continue this and tap different countries in the ASEAN region, including Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia. It's obviously an ongoing thing. So it's not something that where we can apply for multiple countries. What we do right now is one country at a time. So it does benefit both Australia and ASEAN. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yes, I mentioned earlier that there are scholarships available for people in the Indo-Pacific region, but there's this specific scholarship that's for ASEAN citizens. And I believe that they take about 10 scholars from each country every year. We're talking about students, young people like yourselves, who want to embark on master's, postgraduate studies, including master's and PhD. So again, what does this mean for us? It equips our young ASEAN citizens with more knowledge that they can know not only what they can gain from their own countries, but also what they can gain from these development partners education system. Next, please. Now, how does Australia gain from this, not only this partnership, but in by and large in terms of tourism? What you can see here is a table that I put together myself, looking at different databases from the Australian tourism statistics, Australian Statistics Bureau and Tourism Australia. And what you can see here is an increase. You go from right to left, and you will notice an increase of flights from the ASEAN region. This means that the number of tourists coming from ASEAN is growing every month. Our contribution to Australia is significant. That's one way of showing it. Next slide, please. This is another way of showing that the year-to-year growth of tourist arrivals from ASEAN countries to Australia is also very significant. There's a steady growth of movement of people from the ASEAN region to Australia. Next slide. This is a screenshot that I got. Obviously, I had to configure a couple of variables here, but this is what I got from countries, particularly Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia, that is since 2000. So basically, this is from September 2022, which is from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and the latest from the International Visitor Survey in June 2022. You'll notice here that holiday and visiting friends and relatives are the key purpose for travel to the country. Where's all this coming from? Why VFR? Why holiday? Remember, I told you that there's over 800,000 ASEAN origin people with ASEAN origin in Australia. So it's us visiting our family and friends there. You will also notice here, I'd like to bring your attention to how much do ASEAN people spend in the region. It's not surprising to get a whopping $901 million spending from ASEAN. We go shopping in Australia, don't we? Yeah, not only souvenirs, but we shop. Some of us shop till we drop. It's not only the Chinese who do it, the ASEAN people do it as well. So even during pandemic and back in 2022, we have seen this trend. So 901 million is not very surprising. If we consider $166, I don't know how much that would be in rupiah, but $166 per person per night is a lot for an ASEAN citizen. Yes, I can see people nodding. So you get my drift. Next slide, please. Now, I just wanted to show you very briefly this initiative of the Australian government this is focused on tourism called Thrive 2030. And it basically means the reimagined visitor economy of Australia. And it has different stages, and it focuses on collaboration, on modernizing and diversifying tourism products and services and experiences for people. It comes in different stages. Something that we can learn from, something that we can benefit from in the long term, especially here in ASEAN as well. Next slide. Now, there's a very interesting study that my colleagues, Dr. Talkash and Dr. Laurie Murphy have done last year. They did a survey of what is an ideal holiday for Australians. I took this slide from them with their permission, of course. And I encircled here the cities and the countries that Australians prefer to go to on a holiday. We don't see many, do we? What does this mean for us? It means that there is a gap between what we are marketing and what the Australians want to see here. If we want to attract the Australians, we need to repackage ASEAN. And truly, this is what this ASEAN connectivity is about. And this is what the ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan 2016 to 2025 is about. We need to market ASEAN as a single destination. We can do that. It's nothing impossible. It can be challenged. There may be challenges along the way, but that is actually that can be accomplished. So this provides a challenge for all of us. Next. Now, in conclusion, in moving forward, I think it's important for us to leverage on these partnerships, on exploit these dialogue and development partnerships. So we should leverage on the role of the young people like yourselves, the women and the indigenous communities, tap on their strengths and to be able to work together in achieving all this ASEAN strategic plan has in store. We need to strengthen tourism education and personal training towards sustainable and resilient tourism and inclusive tourism. Enhance knowledge sharing and developing mechanisms to share best practices in tourism and hospitality operations effectively. To create and enhance joint tourism marketing programs, including promotional campaigns. And this means if we have to partner, if ASEAN Tourism and the NTOs here have to partner with countries like Australia and New Zealand, so they can really bridge that gap in marketing, then why can't we do that if that's part of our partnership? Also, to develop or enhance capacity building programs in tourism and hospitality SMSE, so small to medium enterprise. in terms of, crisis management, as what Professor Nitia said a while ago, are we really ready for this? If we partner with our neighbors here within ASEAN and outside ASEAN, I think we can be more resilient and we can be more prepared for whatever comes next. Next slide, please. Yes, one word that I would like to share from a speech. Sorry if I'm taking time. That I would like to share from a highlight from Miss Jane Duke, the Australian ambassador to ASEAN, in her remarks at the ASEAN 50-year celebration business forum in 2017. She said, Southeast Asia has no regional grouping alternative to ASEAN and its forums through which to collectively defend and promote this rules-based order. A region without ASEAN or no ASEAN, a region without ASEAN or an ASEAN that finds its centrality and unity fractured would be detrimental to us all. That was an Australian speaking. Now, while we focus on inter-ASEAN connectivity, let us also take advantage of the bridges and the networks that's already existing outside the ASEAN region. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jenny. So it's Dr. Jenny has shown us the importance of the inter partnership between and how it play a big role in the tourism. Okay, thank you. Then I think the third panelist, Mr. Agustinus, Dr. Agustinus, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. A very good afternoon, everybody. This is board member of ATRA, Prof. Neti, Prof. Victor, and Bu Devi. Thank you for having me, and all the panelists. Thank you. So this evening, this afternoon, I would like to share about one story actually, which is connecting us all in ASEAN, which is ASEAN Culture Tourism Connections. I take one case study, which is Panji story. But before I go through this story, I would like to address several figures that has been said previously by Prof. Neti about resilience, about how tourism bounces back after the pandemic. Please, next slide. This is actually the figure from UNWTO, which is taken from 2021. As you can see, the survey said that the world will recover by 2022, only still in 50%, 2022, based on the UNWTO data on 2021. Next slide. And us, as ASEAN, they are classified as in Asia Pacific, including Australia. And we recover in the level of 2019. Why? Because 2019 is the level of the good part of tourism before the pandemic ends. That's why all the figure usually compared to 2019 figure for the UNW survey. So an Asia Pacific number is around 39% for 2023. This is, I think the figure should be corrected now, because as we can see empirical data, more people are traveling in the regions. Next. Okay, this one also an interesting figure. This pinpoint the minus is growing up. It means the minus is lesser and will be end up to the figure of 2019. As you can see now, in end of 2022, December of end 2022, the figure is minus 27. It means that we are approaching the level of 2019. So this is a good sign of us in terms of global recovery. Next slide. But this is one is the more detail of the regions. Asia Pacific actually we have what do we call it? We have more things to do, because the fastest region is to recover is Middle East. Actually, one interesting fact is because the Middle East is opening up for the pilgrim tourism, which is Umrah from a Muslim, and when they opening up, many people, Muslim people, go to Mecca and Medina, because the most visited country from Middle East is Mecca and Medina. Middle East is Saudi Arabia, and the most visited country is Mecca and Medina, which is basically the base of Muslim pilgrim tourism. So Indonesian people also contribute highly on this figure actually. So a specific number is we still in 7.77% minus for in 2022. Next, this is a more clear figure. The yellow one is the figure of 2019. Now the green one is 2022. We are approaching to the yellow one actually. So hopefully by this year and next year's, we will overpass the yellow one. Hopefully, we pray for that one. Next, the previous week data is from international inbound tourists. Now we are talking about ASEAN as a market. ASEAN as not as a market, as a tourist. This is the figure of ASEAN outbound tourists. This is how ASEAN people go abroad. As you can see, the number of the figure before the pandemic, we are in 1/3 of China. So China is the outbound visitor from China is 287 around that, and total Asian country around 89.24 246 in millions US. So this expenditure from ASEAN, from us, who spend money outside, as the figure by Dr. Jenny said, ASEAN love to shop, love to travel. This is the figure actually. And the predictions, of course, the predictions, they are showing a growth from the Asian spending outside the country. So it means that ASEAN, if we travel around ASEAN, we can get more of tourists inside ASEAN and just travel regularly, regionally in ASEAN. Next slide. Okay, so next I would like to talking about ASEAN bond. ASEAN bond, it means from many aspects that we connect Asian country. There's one common characteristic in most country in ASEAN, which is the cultures. Most Asian country in one way or another share common history, art, and culture. And food, gastronomy, we have several food that's similar to one another. In terms of global tourism, ASEAN region is one of the best places to travel around from one country to another. I remember when I was studying in Australia, Dr. Jenny, back then it was a huge market for Australia backpacker. Backpacker is one of a huge market for Australia, and youth from Europe and US, they came to Australia because it said down under, right? Down under, and they travel from Europe and UK and America to go to Australia backpacking. If they call it, okay, you have finished in Australia, next destination it will be ASEAN. You go to Bali and then you could travel to Thailand and so on. So Australia first, next is the ASEAN. So that's the common route of the backpacker at that time. I don't know whether it's the same or not, but I think it's the similar patterns. It means ASEAN region have the potential to be a regional destination to travel around Asians, because geographically Asians share the same climate and natural characteristic. And most region we have similar thing, except of course the language. Some language are different, especially the Malay. Some we can understand Malay, and of course Thailand we have different language. Next, just copying the UNWTO definition about culturism, refer to tourism activity in a feature motivation to learn, discover, to experience different things in intangible or tangible cultural attractions. And cultural tourism encompasses many things like visual cultural site, and then participating in cultural event, experiencing traditional music, sampling local cuisine, and so on. So it contributes to preservation and promotion of the cultures. So this is what cultural tourism all about. And one particular things that I would like to share about this is one story. Next, please. This is the story of Panji story. What makes this story interesting? Because this Panji story emerged in the 13th century from Singasari Kimber, one small kingdom from East Java, Indonesia. The story is about Raden Panji and his lover Dewi Kartaji. And then so it is said that Panji was engaged to Chandrakirana, and this lover spirited because so many reasons, and they got spirited. And then finally they meet and happily married, and together they have a happy ending. This love stories have happy ending. Next. But this story implemented in so many forms. Yeah, it is developed in East Java, and it is originally oral stories transformed into literature such as inscriptions, statues, and relief in temples in East Java, and also statue and performing arts. So this is a story. The Spanish story has been written and also transformed in so many art performance. Next. There's example of implication of Panji story. There is a mask topeng Panji or the mask of Panji, a Gambu performing arts in Bali, and batik kending in Probolinggo and wayang beber in Pacitan. So that's spread in several parts of the Indonesian regions. Next. Also, one of the implication is the relief. There are some relief in the picture is Candi Penataran in Blitar, East Java. They get a tour package relating with the heritage of Panji, and then they have a story told by the student and also told by the tourist guide about Panji. Next. They are also performing arts, yeah, they're showing Penataran events, and also they create an experiential tourism, how the children are coloring the mask, and also after they color the mask and they practice the dancing and so on. Next. So what is the connections? Actually, Panji's story has spread during the Majapahit Empire around 14th to 15th centuries. The Panji story became extremely popular at that time and spread by the sea merchants and become one of the most popular literature in Southeast Asia. And then it said the Panji civilization has great influence in Asian regions, and it was registered in a memory of the world in UNESCO on October 30, 2017. Next. So it already spread in 4 nations in a country in Asia. In Thailand, there were 2 main Panji versions titled Inau and Dalang. And Panji tells then evolved into a dance performance. In Myanmar, the Burmese Panji tells annoying beating the chorus original title of Ainda Bunta. I'm sorry, misspelling, of Burmese and chorus dance performance. And the Cambodian also they have their own fashion about Inau and from Khmer, from first forms. And Malaysia, they have the literature from Melayu, and it's about 100 different texts. There's also Hikayat Hang Tua and Inau dance performed in Thailand. So the interesting part of Panji, it is not they have a strict scheme. You cannot change the storyline. They can change the storyline based on the local wisdom of the area. So that's why it's an interesting part of Panji. Different with we call it about Romeo and Juliet. They have fixed storyline, but Panji they have in a way dynamic storyline based on the local regions. That's why it can be accepted by the countries in Asia. Next. So this is just the story of the picture of several performances about Panji in Asian country. One in Bali, Made, and in Java, of course, the Central and Cambodia, in Malaysia, in Myanmar, and in Thailand. So it is interesting that Panji story connect the country in Asian with one story of the love story. Next. So the revival of the Panji tradition is example of globalization. So global recognition, but local content. Panji has now become important feature in national culture for Indonesia. Actually, we have Festival Panji in Nusantara. International Panji Festival also held in 2018, and also Panji now is considered as common link in the history of culture of Asian countries. So if we can share one story, we have one love story from Asian, which is a Panji story. Next. What we can do actually as a researcher, as a academician, we can acknowledge and promote the story of Panji as one of the cultural connection among Asian countries. And we can identify the cultural heritage from site performance arts, and also develop extensive research in development of Panji story within our Asian countries. And then we can create tour packages and creating storyline to attract tourists to Asian country and travel among Asian. We can do the joint project, joint event, and joint promotion among ASEAN country to promote project to global tourism market to attract more tourists to come to Asians. Next, thank you. Selamat. Thank you very much. Cannot read all the.
Thank you, Dr. Agustinus. very interesting. Yeah, the story of Trita Panji. It's based on Majapahit Empire. Yeah. So okay, and then next, I think Mr. Ko, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, selamat sore. And thank you, ATRA, for inviting me for this panel, both the president and Ibu Devi, for asking me to be here. I'm very pleased to be here, very honored to be here among the panelists, all very experts in tourism. The theme today is, of course, going forward with tourism, ASEAN connectivity. But I'd like to give you a bit of history, because one of the reasons for me joining ATRA is to do some historical research, but my historical timeline goes back quite far. I think, Nitya, you mentioned the ASEAN tourism ministers. I was there during the time of the first NTO meeting and the first ASEAN tourism meeting. Next slide, please. I want to show you a bit of the experience I have. Apart from being a journalist, I was also executive director of the ASEAN Chamber of Commerce, Kamar Dagang, and ASEAN Business Forum, both ASEAN level organizations. And for a period, I was the deputy executive director of the ASEAN Tourism Information Center. This was way back in 1989 to 1996. Then it was decided that with the closure of SCOT, there's a change. The subcommittee on tourism used to be under that structure. Then it got closed down, and they formed the ASEAN National Tourism Organizations. So during this period, we organized a Visit ASEAN Year 1992. And we had several ASEAN Dialogue Partner projects, including organizing the ASEAN Tourism Forum. And I think my last experience was in Surabaya, 1996. And those days we had Pak Yub Awe as the minister. We had Pak Andy Mapisaming, who was the dirigent at the time of the tourism department. And so this was a very long experience in the 80s, 90s. And for a while, I was with the Malaysian Tour and Travel Association, which is MATA. And lately, I also worked on online activities with regard to tourism, based as a Lufthansa-based tourism e-commerce project. This was before the time that internet became popular. And for two projects, Enda Rompin is the second largest national park in Peninsular Malaysia. So I was a business consultant there, together with a review of the National Ecotourism Plan for Malaysia, which was first done in 1996, and then we did the review before the pandemic about 6-7 years ago. So that's the background, and that gave me a lot of perspective on what ASEAN tourism developed over the years. If I can have the next slide. So the time was 7 countries. It did not include the CLMV countries, so that Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. And we had Brunei, we had all the 6 countries, and gradually all the ASEAN countries came in. So in the 1990s, we had a lot of the first campaign, Visit ASEAN Year. And it all started with Visit Thailand Year 1987, which was such a success. All the countries wanted to follow. And after that, we engaged into a period of ASEAN capacity building for ASEAN tourism products and infrastructure. So this was a very busy period that we were forming the products. And we had a lot of third country dialogue partner investments into ASEAN, like the human resource training, marketing into various countries, the ASEAN promotional chapters for tourism. These were all being developed, including to Australia. And we had the individual country campaigns. Now, every country wanted to have their own campaign. Do you remember Go Archipelago? So you had Visit Malaysia Year, how many editions? Philippines, we had Thailand again several times. And every country was competing against each other, but it was all in good spirit. And we were counting the ASEAN, intra-ASEAN arrivals was the most important figure, not so much the individual arrivals into each country, but how much of a market ASEAN was to itself. And I think for the longest time, even today, ASEAN is the biggest market for ASEAN. So we must always remember that.
And we had a lot of liberalization of intra-ASEAN travel among the populations. So I don't have the statistics. My presentation is not quantitative, but qualitatively from the 90s till now, you had a tremendous growth in the tourism arrival numbers. And I relate this to the boost in ASEAN travel with growth of the budget airlines, with the AirAsia and with the Scoot, I think, and with all the Lion Air and all these budget airlines. Now everyone can fly. What's the tagline? Huh? Semua orang boleh terbang. That my question was, can everybody afford it? Even though you had a lot of travel, I think there was also a lot of people who could not move. So although we had very high numbers, was there greater connectivity really between the ASEAN peoples? I mean, we have 500, 600 million people now, but it's only still a small percentage. And of course, a lot of this is due to the archipelago nature. We are made of 22,000 islands, a big mainland, and travel within the countries is not so much facilitated as yet. We are not like the free market, European common market where everybody can, but even then there are negative implications. So in the 2010 to 2020 period, we had a lot of key external markets come in, the Muslim market, Middle East, and China. I wrote a small little monogram in 1996 on the Japanese travel market, and they were projecting up to 20 million at that time by the year 2020. Was small compared now, if you want to compare China. China is so huge by comparison. So those years were very preliminary early years. And you could say that tourism improved the life of many people. A rising tide raises all the boats. And you have a lot of employment, you have a lot of economic activity. But I always look at tourism as a mass consumption machine. Professor Nitya mentioned 1 billion tourists in the year 2018. But you must remember, this is a product of a consumer society. While they are rising in numbers, it's also a real estate development. You'll have a development of places where what do you call that? The thinning of the culture that can take place, the mass commercialization will take place. So these are the negative attributes. So you could have a hollowing out of local cultures and local, so these are the things you must watch out for. And as was mentioned by the president just now, 2020, 2022 is the COVID shutdown period. The tourism industry faced an existential crisis, and the impact was felt most by the lowest segment of the society. The lowest segment means the employees, the people who could not find work. We had so many cases of people in the industry, the advice was given to them by their managers to let all their staff go. And with some compensation, no doubt, but they had no jobs, they had no recourse to any other form of employment. So now it's very interesting, 3 years later, we are now at 2022, 2023. What does the post-COVID period represent? So we are opening up again. Everybody is looking at the future with excitement. And you have, in cases like in Kuala Lumpur, I work with a small group called the Network of Bukit Bintang Communities. So we organized a prosperity forum. We wanted to make sure that everybody is prosperous post-COVID. So we organized a prosperity walk. We wanted to create a new event, which is basically a procession from Jalan Alor in Kuala Lumpur down to the Padang. That was done in last year, but because of COVID restrictions, we couldn't go so far. This year, we did a bigger show, and 2024, we'll have an even bigger show on February 24, 2024. So that would be like celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur. So this is an example of local communities trying to create events to recover from the post-COVID period. And it's very interesting that while I was doing the ecotourism studies, I literally applied and learned about how to minimize maybe tourism's negative impact. For example, in ecotourism, we try to apply the concept of a core and a peripheral. When you want to preserve nature's carrying capacity, you must preserve the core. so that you do not lose the biodiversity. But you can harden the periphery, and then you can have increased carrying capacity to develop maybe higher volume tourism products, hotels that can maybe like 200-300 rooms. Whereas within the core, you keep to 10, maybe 20 rooms, very small ecotourism resorts. So using that principle, we were able to, develop solutions to this. So can we, in the consideration of future tourism projects, apply principles such as this, select the areas that we should preserve, harden the areas that we can take in a larger carrying capacity. We cannot, say nobody travels for the sake of the environment. People will always want to travel. And, the urge is there. The story is such that when the COVID opens, everybody is rushing out of jail. It's like they're released from their imprisoned in the homes. And I tell you, it was like what was said earlier. You couldn't believe that there was such a time when we all had to stay at home. So going forward, the issues are social and environmental sustainability. This is a subject that I've been studying for a long time, since my time in tourism, because I'm agriculture based, and when we do develop crops, you come into interface with the environment, and you must figure out a way that you're not doing more harm than good in developing that industry. So you're going to have standards, and among the standards, I think being set is one done by the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which is the council that looks at how sustainable criteria is maintained. And then on the other side of the coin, you have digital connectivity. You have connectivity that is created by social media, by the mobile phone, by internet. Even though you may not have friends physically, you have friends virtually. So now you have a lot of friends all over ASEAN, maybe all around the world, but you don't get to see them in person. You can see them in the digital format. So going forward, what are the headwinds? We have the environmental impact of new tourism infrastructure projects. And given, if you are following the news closely, there's a financial crisis brewing, and this will create questions of where's the investments going to come from. And digital trends such as Web 3.0, AI, and the metaverse are going to impact a lot on the various products and activities going forward. So this is the story of how we look at ASEAN as a single destination. In the summary of it all, I'd like to add that, next slide, please. This is the answer to the question of connectivity, I believe. And I think this alluded to by all my various panelists before, which is gastronomy, which is culture. What connects us are all ASEAN values. And we have to answer the question, what are ASEAN values? From the very beginning of ASEAN, since the time it was formed, we are, of course, made up of 6, 7, now 10 countries, maybe soon 11 with Timor-Leste. We have to understand what are we. And we have, of course, originally the Malay and the indigenous civilizational values that existed in this region before. And then we have the influence of the Chinese civilizational values. You have to recognize that this influence is there. And of course, even before that, you have the Indian civilization values. I'm not mentioning religion here because religion is embedded in the civilizational values. Then you have the influence of the Western colonial influence. And that's very interesting because it impacts different countries differently. And they were the ones that basically created the borders around what was otherwise a borderless archipelago that had no divisions in between them. And if we can look at what are ASEAN values, because values are important because values are what bind a community together. If you do not have values, similar values, or the commonality in values, then you're not a community. You are separate communities if you have separate values. So we got to identify all that. Now, I'd like to spend the last slide, if you can have the last slide, looking at what, can I have the next slide, please? The next slide. Oh. Okay, so in my view, if you can indulge me a little bit, this is a kind of a non-academic view. in my view, tourism, is it better? Better now? No. Hello? Go back to original. In my view, tourism has evolved over the decades from travel, essentially a logistics industry of moving people around. That was what tourism was originally about. And then it developed into a hospitality and services industry, whereby services are provided. You have a room to stay, you have food to eat. Then it was gradually known as an enjoyment and experiential industry, experience industry. You go and experience things. Now with digitalization and with specialization, I believe tourism will move into what you call the knowledge industry phase. And what I mean by knowledge industry, the digital industry is considered a knowledge industry. But when you have these enablers, the tourism practitioners of the future will be knowledge practitioners. Now you go to a forest and what does a forest look like to you? Just a bunch of trees and bunches and leaves and animals, flora and fauna. But if you have a tourist guide who can tell you what species and what each species can do in each of the context of the ecosystem, he's like a librarian explaining to you the library of the forest. The DNA that's found inside there is found in all its complexity, what it means. The whole forest looks like a different entity to you. And the same thing for culture. Culture is history. And if you do not have the knowledge practitioner who knows what culture is, then you just go to a place and all you see is basically buildings and basically food. But you don't know the history of culinary history is going to be a very important segment. So knowledge base is basically developing the not only the historical but the actual living practices, a database which is embodied in the knowledge of the person. So when you develop programs in future, you're not just basically studying about tourism as a way to do operations, but more preserving the knowledge base and then using this knowledge base to in the form of the arts and presentation skills, storytelling, tell this to the tourists who come. Every tourist is basically an audience for the storyteller who's going to tell the story. And in that sense, it's the knowledge base. So looking ahead, we are looking at, I would say, away from mass tourism, which is basically urban tourism. We have to look at non-urban tourism, or NUT for short. NUT is basically rural, eco, agri, culinary, cultural, heritage tourism. All the tourism products that you can produce outside the urban setting, because that's where the knowledge really is. That's where tourists are going to go. With that, you're going to have various hyper-localization of tourism development and marketing. And this is what's going to happen, a deepening of the cultural experience. Tourists these days don't just go to a place, like I said, to experience, but they want to know more and understand more. And if you can have today a one-day experience, you will spend 2 days or 3 days learning more about the cultural experience. Like we have a tour guide in Kuala Lumpur who takes us on a heritage tour. And she goes on this tour. It's a very short tour, but it's of the entire history of Kuala Lumpur. And what she has done is basically now, her name is Jane Rai. She will now actually take the tour on a with a mic and all that and transmit it real time to anywhere in the world. And a good number of tourist guides are now doing this so that your tour can be listened in by everybody, anybody. And you only pay $10 US, but you can tune in anytime and anywhere. For example, these things are happening. And you have the emerging example of emergence of what you call slow tourism. You know what's fast tourism, so you know what's slow tourism. So people want now to go to places, islands. You have 17,000 islands in Indonesia, depending on whether it's high tide or low tide, right? So the thing is, some places are not connected. Some people want to go there and enjoy the slow life. And then you have sustainability and environmental protection. But above all, I believe what's going to come next is fair returns to stakeholders and inclusivity. So while we used to calculate tourism returns as businesses which benefit shareholders, people who own corporations and companies that develop the tourism business, more attention has to be paid to stakeholders, the communities that live around those areas. This is all the CBT, community-based tourism. And of course, we have to look at how communities can self-empower. Don't depend on political leadership, don't depend on the political government bureaucracy, because there's too much sometimes confusion and wastage. I think communities have to get together through cooperatives and other instruments to organize themselves and look at looking at developing their own resources for doing projects and activities. With that, I end my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ko. I think it's really interesting presentation. Yeah. Mr. Ko emphasizing on the ASEAN values and the revolution of the tourism industry. That is very interesting for me. Okay, now, yeah. Is there any question from the forum? From him? Yeah. Okay. Okay. One. Please.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for the times. May I introduce myself? My name is Jeannie. I am the head of the Central Study and Tourism Development in Universitas Pancasila, Faculty Tourism. So my question is for Dr. Pospisanno. Yeah, it was a very interesting presentation about the gastronomy tourism. And actually, this is one of my research about the urban gastronomy, urban heritage tourism. And my question is, you saw that the buildings, heritage buildings, and the area of the Phuket Old Town, and the activity is about gastronomy in that old building. My question is there any connection with the history of the buildings, with the kind of the culinary of the gastronomy that offer in that buildings? And the other question is there any idea for the developing the area, probably connecting with the Asian country, maybe make the center of the Asian culinary or gastronomy in that area, or probably in our country too, have the same kind of the gastronomy tourism. And this is probably the question for the Mr. Ko Hok Aun, because you said that may create the Asian as the single tourism. Probably you can answer too. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Jini. This quite interesting question. I think Dr. Nu and Mr. Cook can answer. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. History and all other parts of cultures are very, very important that can be connected to gastronomy, because food alone will not have will not be presented with a very high value, but it has to be connected with details of the history and other parts of culture to be presented together with the food, presented to the tourists. Yeah. So what community-based tourism in Phuket Town, this community has been doing is that they link together the history of the food, where the food originated and how the food was developed in the past, and then why it was cooked that way, why it was served that way during the time, and then they kind of have short storytelling to go along with each dish, and then they allow tourists to be able to participate with some of the dishes through cooking lessons that tourists can participate. I think this is a very important part to be able to add more value to the food and dishes to be presented to the tourists. Otherwise, it will be just food, local food that tourists eat and then go without any knowledge, going back with knowledge about that particular culture. This is very important. And another question that you asked about your idea about having Asian Center for Cuisine. Yeah, this is very interesting. We have quite unique cuisine in Southeast Asia, and many of our cuisines are shared among ASEAN countries members. Like I said, for example, Phuket and Penang have very similar cuisine. Maybe we could come up with tourism routes for ASEAN countries about gastronomy, that can be presented to the tourists. Or we can, universities can also conduct joint research, investigating about gastronomy, tourism, gastronomy cuisines of different countries. And then this will be a very important and interesting another form of tourism that can be offered, and positioning ASEAN as perhaps a center of gastronomy, tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe you asked me the question as well. I like to say that ASEAN is the center for fusion cuisine. So we fuse a lot of cuisines together here. You have a lot of cuisines in Malaysia, for example, which is a campur-campur from so many different cultures. If you take even a look at curry mee, which is my favorite food, it has mee from China, spaghetti. There's curry from India. It's got various spices from various parts of the country. And you only find this curry mee in various forms, north, middle, and south. There are different types of curry mee. One day we'll be exploring deeper into this from the historical point of view. And I know food is an acquired taste, but when Secretary Nazalina came to Kuala Lumpur each time, she wanted to taste curry mee. I don't know whether it's a common thing among Filipinos or not, but sometimes it's too hot. But you see curry mee everywhere now, and including in Singapore, and it is adjusted to all kinds of levels of taste. Having said that, food and cuisine and history are intricately mixed up. And I'm working on a separate team, which is basically culinary history. Cuisine and biodiversity are actually linked, because you cook your food from the species of plants that you find around you. And if you start, destroying all your biodiversity, you're going to lose all your sources of your food, your spices that go into it and all that. So if there's actually no study done on this, but eventually there will be when they look it up, because they are looking at multidisciplinary approaches to this topic. And I'd just like to add one last thing. Between Phuket and Penang, there's a lot of Peranakan influence. I don't know whether you understand the term Peranakan. Peranakan is basically the early migrants of the Chinese into this part of the world, into Malacca, and then into Borneo, and then into Jakarta, and into various parts. So you have the Peranakan cuisine. So for instance, as part of my activity this year, we have a long-running play called Emily of Emerald Hill, written by Stella Korn, who's a Singaporean, and it's going to be staged like for the 200th time by Chin Tan Sui. So we're going to have a dinner theater, which we will serve Peranakan food, because Emily of Emerald Hill is Peranakan. So it's a combination of the food and the drama, and we want to make it interesting as packaging a new product. And of course, if it's done this way, it will of course be interesting. So far, there's only Chin San Sui and Pearly Chua that's acting. There's nobody else. But of course, anyone can actually take the role up and the play can be reproduced anywhere, for example. So just like Panji, cuisine can be integrated with the story and you can have more interesting ways of promoting this.
Thank you, Dr. Nu and Mr. Ko. There is another question. I think this is for Dr. Jenny. In what ways that existing partnership can promote sustainable tourism and people-to-people connectivity? I think it's very related to your presentation. And for Mr. Dr. Agustinus, what is the core value of the Panji story that compared to other cultural that we can share between countries? I think those two words. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that question, sir. There are different ways to really leverage on all these partnerships that the ASEAN region has with different countries, and even whatever partnerships we have, whatever bilateral agreements we have within the ASEAN region from among the member states of ASEAN. Well, ATRA, that's ASEAN Tourism Research Association, where we belong, is a good example of this kind of connectivity, people-to-people connectivity and institution-to-institution connectivity. What we are doing now, what my colleagues are doing now in ATRA is provides a very solid example of how these connectivity come into play and what we can achieve with this connectivity. We have Prince of Songkla University, for example, and Universitas Pancasila working together to come up with new knowledge through publications, through edited books, through journal articles, and so on. And I think with the inter-ASEAN partnership, we can, as I said, I use the word, and I'm going out on a limb and say I use the word exploit, and just go out there, because whatever these partnerships are about is to benefit us in the ASEAN region, not just the partner countries. So traveling to those destinations would also mean that we are sharing with them a part of ourselves as ASEAN citizens, our culture, not only our money, but we are sharing a part of who we are as ASEAN citizens when we visit New Zealand, when we visit Europe or America or other parts of the world. And in that way, we are exposing who we are as ASEAN, who we are as a people, what our culture is. So with these existing partnerships, whether taking up a scholarship in Australia, New Zealand, or in Europe, or just visiting those countries can bring benefits to us as well. We can also learn from each other by upskilling and reskilling, and having all these agreements. I think what it's called. Sorry if I don't get this right. The qualifications that people have in terms of vocational and educational and teaching, etc., that we have across ASEAN. We can all learn from each other only if we share. And it's through sharing that we really learn and adapt and be more resilient as a region.
Okay, so what the interesting part of Panji story that is different with other story. Actually, once I explained before, it is basically a love story between two persons, between Panji and also Dewi Skartaji. Actually, in the world, we have known about the story of Romeo and Juliet, and from the western side of the world, and also from Chinese, we have Sampai Eng Tai, and also we have Ramayana, we have the story of the love story, but most of them are a tragedy and in tragedy. Most of them, Romeo and Juliet, Sampai Eng Tai is in tragedy. But this love story, Panji, is a happy ending. They have a happy ending. It gives us the story of harmony of life, harmony between human people to people, and the people with the environment and the local environments, and also the people with the God. So it's not about harmony on the surrounding of the ecosystem, and also it also teach about the relationships within different culture. They have different interpretations, and the Panji story allow the local people to be creative, to create their own style, or maybe they create their own version of Panji. But basically, they teach us about how to live within the community. That's why once again the key word is the harmony. So that's why we can share it to the words about the story.
Thank you, Dr. Agustinus. I think harmony is like something value that all of the countries in the ASEAN is reflecting their daily life. Yeah. So it's, I think, okay. Okay, there is one more question from the Zoom. There is from Imtiaz Mokbil. He said, he or she, that as we have ASEAN Tourism Agreement signed it in November 2002. Is there any evaluation or success of the success and the failure of this agreement? I think this question is applied to all the panelists. Maybe I would like to have the comment from all the panelists. Maybe starting from Mr. Ku.
ASEAN agreement in 2022. Wow, that's 20 years ago. I don't quite know how to answer that question, if I'm supposed to answer that question. But I think the promotion and the development of ASEAN as a tourism destination, a single destination, can be considered at several levels. At the G2G level, it's very successful. You have a very close bonding among all the ministries and the policymakers onto that. Then you have the private sector, which is, I think, manifested through ASEANTA. Of course, the private sector is organized of the hoteliers, the travel agents, so many different parties to it. So they move a bit slower. And I think still the progress, in my view, is being made, but probably a lot more can be done, especially after the COVID. But a lot more definitely needs to be done on the people-to-people level, in my opinion. The vision of the government, the leaders have yet to be realized, I believe. So much more probably needs to be done. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So Asian agreement, yeah, in my opinion, actually, it's not as working as we expected to be in terms of regulation. For example, if we are talking about the European, they have the European Union, they one visa, you can travel to around the European country, that is one second visa. In ASEAN, because different countries have different regulations regarding the international visitor. So it is work that we still have to work together in government level. But as I agree, we cannot depend on the government's agreement. We have to create more relation among the people. So this is what we create. The connection of the people and also the private sector. I think in a way, the private sector, the business side between Asian countries, they are working closely together to promote Asian. But of course, as Dr. Jenny said, we have to put more effort to promote Asian as a single destination, as a single regional destination that you can travel. If you go to Indonesia, you go to Thailand, go to Malaysia, you go to Singapore as a single destination of Asian, not separate countries. I think this thing that we have to work together.
Thank you. Yeah, I think being a 20-year-old agreement, where we sit right now, it's really hard to give a review of that. But with the ASEAN strategic tourism plan that was initially, that we have right now leading to 2025, shows that we are on the right track. It shows that we are continuing whatever the strategic plan was before this. We have gained from the previous strategic plan. That's why we're carrying on whatever good things that has come about from the previous strategies that we have as a region. Now moving forward, and as Dr. Ntia said, by the way, COVID has actually erased a lot of those accomplishments we've had previously. And we are pretty much restarting. We start to rethink, we start to reimagine, we start to do all the re. And someone said earlier about sustainability. Sustainability wasn't taken seriously in the past. And because of COVID, I think it was Professor Niti as well. Before COVID, we have started taking sustainability more seriously. On even little kids are now starting to understand the value of sustainability, why we have to take care of the environment. Even in terms of, tourist behavior, we want to do things and tell things to our visitors through storytelling or even signages to shape their behavior, for their behavior to be more sustainable. Even kids, we use humor to shape that behavior of our tourists. So if we apply that, and we are doing those things little by little in different pockets in the ASEAN region, and we have to appreciate that. So I think that's pretty much a very broad, almost blind review of a 20-year-old agreement, but I think we're getting there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. J, Dr. Nu, Dr. Agustinus, and Mr. Ko. I think this is also the end of this discussion. This is such a very fruitful and very insightful presentation. And I think all the participants can give applause for all the participants. Yeah. And then I would like to back to the MC. Thank you.
To all panelists can go back to their seats.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible insight and helpful information we heard from our special panelists. We have a productive and inspiring time together. This event is about to come to the very end. I hope you found this forum is informative and helpful.
And before we end our special event, we would like to present our panelists today with tokens of appreciation. And to present the ceremonial gift, kindly be invited the Dean of Faculty of Tourism, Universitas Pancasila, Ibu Devi, to come to the stage. And we also would like to invite Professor Dr. Nityanantan Ariragavan to receive our ceremonial gift.
Next, we would like to invite Bapak Mezar, our Vice Dean of Academic, to come to the stage to present the ceremonial gift. And to Dr. Pon Pisanu from Sivapalop, please come to the stage to receive our ceremony gift. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise in this forum.
Next, we would like to invite Ibu Sarojini, the head of Tourism Study Program, to present the ceremonial gift. Ibu Sarojini, please come to the stage. And also, we would like to invite Dr. Jenny Panchal to receive our ceremonial gift.
Next, we would like to invite Bapak Made, our head of MICE and Event Study Program, to come to the stage to present the ceremonial gift. And also, we would like to invite Dr. Agustinus to receive our ceremonial gift. Thank you so much for sharing a very interesting presentation. Thank you.
Next, we would like to invite Bapak Riza as the coordinator of the 12th ATRA Tourism Forum to present the ceremonial gift. And also, we'd like to invite Mr. Ko Hok Aun to receive our ceremonial gift. And thank you so much for your insightful sharing. Now we will do a photo session, and the photo session will be divided into 3 sessions. The first session that will be for our panelists and the Dean of Faculty of Tourism. Then followed by our panelists with our online participants, and lastly, a photo session with the rest of the audience. So for the first session, we would like to invite the, Ibu Devi and our panelists to come forward. We would like also to invite our the board of ATRA. Okay, the second section will be with the online participants. For the participants that join our Zoom, can open their camera for photo session. Buat teman-teman yang join dalam Zoom, boleh tolong on kamera dulu untuk foto session. Oke. Okay, for the last session, we're going to take pictures with the rest of the participants that attend here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Now, the forum has come to an end. Let us all be guided by all the things we have learned and heard throughout the forum and be able to see and influence our future.
Thank you, and thank you very much. And before we part, please accept this first from us. jangan disimpan di dalam peti. Harap sudi maafkan kami. Till we meet again, perhaps in the next forum, may all of you have a safe journey home. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.